Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy.
Welcome to Frogman Friday. I'm Ryan Birdman Parrott. Today, our badass guest is Alexander Kunz. He served 10 years as a Navy SEAL, exiting service as a petty officer second class. He founded OP2 Labs in 2014, located in Fort Worth, Texas. You can follow Alex and OP2 Labs on social media, handles to follow after the show. To learn more about OP2 Labs, go check out op2labs.com. Brother, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too, brother. So let's kick it off. You know, you did service, you did awesome service. You get out. Your idea of founding a company is a massive one because some guys like me start companies really small and they take 20 years to grow to a certain level. You got into this nutrition supplements. You got into a really cool dynamic. I've talked to some of your buddies who actually, you know, when you were founding this thing, and it's just an interesting way you went about putting this thing together. Why did you found this company and what was your idea? What excites you about the industry you're in?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. And you know, what actually kind of brought us to this journey really is that, you know, as you know, you've experienced it firsthand. I mean, within the teams, you're kind of always operating at peak physical and mental conditions. And it doesn't just stop once you make it the teams, because, you know, you've got younger guys coming in that are expecting you to keep up with them, or, you know, at the end of the day, you want to maintain a good reputation. So Jeff and I served in the teams together. And I would say that we probably weren't the best of friends because we had more of a contentious relationship in our platoon, because we were always competing with one another. We always have to one up one another, you know, whether it's shooting, running, or working out. And I think the thing that we kind of learned is, you know, part of that performance enhancement is always looking at buying the best protein supplements, pre-workouts. And, you know, I remember back then I'm probably spending a couple $100 a month buying stuff. And throughout the years, I kind of noticed this pattern that kind of emerged, that every time I started working hard, I started feeling strong, getting bigger, I get an injury, you know, tearing a muscle or tearing a tendon or something. And that just kind of happened throughout my whole career. You know, you get to your peak, you fall back down, you get to your peak, you fall back down. And so, you know, Jeff and I had this vision. You know, we had talked about it back then, and we thought about, hey, you know, we should create a product that is actually designed for folks like ourselves who are operating in the most strenuous and arduous conditions in the world, both physically and mentally. And so we had the idea. Jeff left service before I did, started contracting. I think he's been contracting now for like 15 years, but he started contracting originally. I went into the corporate world. And then shortly after, so I got out pre 9/11, and I was actually doing cybersecurity for the Department of Defense, a DoD, for Navy Marine Corps Internet, for their entire network infrastructure. And I remember sitting in the network operations center, because we have these huge screens up where we can monitor all the different computers. I mean, we had something like 500,000 computers we monitored all the time. And I remember seeing the planes flying to the Twin Towers. And at that time, I was actually going through a separation with my ex. We had a custody battle. And so I basically ended up, because she wasn't working, having to pay like a ridiculous amount of money. But, you know, after 9/11, I really wanted to go back in, but financially I couldn't, right? It was one of those things that, you know, I even went back to court and said, hey, I want to go back into DoD. And they said, well, you can go back into DoD, but it doesn't change what you have to pay. So financially I couldn't do it. So I, you know, originally kind of contracted, believe it or not, I contracted with a agents, not an agency, but an organization where I actually deployed in Africa for a year, and come to find out on my return visit, found out through the State Department that they actually were not a legitimate organization. They were actually considered a mercenary group. So when I came back, I was more or less greeted and told if I went downrange with this group again, that I would lose my citizenship. So, and I didn't know anything about contract. I didn't know who was doing what. And then, you know, I reached back out, found out Jeff was actually working for the agency. And I reached out to him and said, hey, can you get me into contracting work? And so I did. So I went through Blackwater for about two and a half years. And, you know, my ultimate goal is that I really wanted to go into ground branch at that time, but I had a kind of unique situation. So during this whole time, the custody battle was kind of festering, right? And so the only way she was actually going to win full custody in this case is it was because of her argument that I'm always deploying and I'm never home and I can't raise a child because of my lifestyle. So that to me, I kind of had to decide, hey, do I want to be in my kid's life, not be in his life? So I decided, hey, I'm going to stop contracting and go back to corporate world. Well, fast forward a bit, went and worked for a number of Fortune 250 companies. Jeff contacted me back in 2012 and said, hey, I want to stop contracting. What do you think about this nutrition company idea? And so we started down this path of research, reading a lot of medical literature, scientific studies on different types of protein molecules, protein assimilation, digestion, absorption, medical treatment. So that went on for a better part of a year. I mean, just getting into really technical research. And what we noticed was there's this huge disparity between research done on protein molecules in the United States and those done in Sweden, Switzerland, Germany, and stuff. So United States, everything was really based off of whey protein, and there really was no research on vegetable proteins or collagen, stuff like that. And what we noticed in a lot of the research over in Germany and stuff is they were actually using collagen to actually heal joints, repair macular degeneration, but it wasn't commercially viable at that point. They were taking millions of dollars to produce this collagen to actually perform these studies. So we knew instantly that that's the protein molecule we needed. So we had to decide, a couple things. Collagen's naturally an incomplete protein. So we had to figure out not only how to manufacture the collagen in a way that's commercially viable, but also how to fortify and enhance the amino acid structures so it's a complete protein. So Jeff and I didn't have that background, so we ended up hiring a chemist out of Stanford. And we basically put forth 5 requirements and said, this is what we want in a protein, can it be done? And so a year later, we created our first protein, and then it took us about 6 months and hundreds of samples to actually get the flavoring correct. And then I would say that we kind of more or less officially launched the product in 2014.
Wow. That's awesome that you actually, when I think of this, when I think of team guys putting together companies, you think about what you just talked about of everything chemical related. It blows my mind, and that you hired a chemist to bring this thing to fruition. That's pretty intelligent stuff, man. That's really cool. Because like you said, when I was in the service, we were just pumping creatine, and we were pumping anything on the shelf that they basically said at GNC or whatever, like, this is the hot stuff. This is what you're going to do. You're taking whatever, no explode. And well, everybody's on it and you're just itching afterwards and you're still, getting after it. You're like, I have no clue what I'm actually putting in my body. None. And then years later, you start to get smart when you're older and you're like, well, now I regret certain things that I probably can't take back, but I can rebuild. So I love that you're doing it in a healthy way to look at real human performance, because it's something that drives me really hard is, looking at human performance of how am I going to be at my best shape. So what products do you offer at your company? Is it just products, or what else are you doing at your company?
Yeah, it's primarily products, and we are looking at adding some services down the road for clinical nutrition consulting. But we have really, if you think of it, it's 2 brands, right? Protein Gold and then FrogFuel. So we actually launched the product initially before we even launched FrogFuel. We actually launched our medical brand, so Protein Gold, and we actually use that in medical setting for the treatment of over 14 different medical indications. So number 1 use of our products, post-surgical wound care. It's proven to heal wounds 2 times faster. So if you go through major shoulder surgery and they tell you you're going to be recovered in 6 months, you'll literally be up and ready and working out in 3. It works that well. We use it for treating pressure ulcers, diabetic wounds, sarcopenia treatment, use it for chemotherapy treatment. And our latest addition is that actually the country, we just went from being like the number 3 to 4 protein brand in Peru. Now we're the number 1 protein brand in Peru, and because they actually approved us for a COVID treatment protocol down there.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, send me a load of that stuff. Okay.
Yeah, and really the way it works is collagen, well, it's not just the collagen, it's all, we didn't design thinking of the kind of the cellular immunity aspect of it, but it was actually a doctor who was using our product for chemotherapy treatment who realized that because of the way we formulated the product with a specific ratio of amino acids, that it significantly boosts the glutathione levels in your body. And when you have high glutathione levels, it actually builds cellular immunity. So it's how your cells can actually fight off disease and various other things. So it was an indirect effect of us developing this formulation, but it was actually a doctor who did cancer treatment that actually found out that it significantly enhanced the cellular immunity. And he even went so far as to say that that his patients actually were like no longer experiencing flus anymore.
That's interesting. Wow. Okay, so let's talk about frogfuel.
Yeah, so that's an interesting story. So kind of a background there. It's kind of funny because some people do ask us this. Frogfuel actually started off as a product called One Shot, and it had like this big number 1 on it. And it said a little shot on it. And it's a funny story because this was shortly after Osama bin Laden died, or I think it was maybe before that. Walt Disney was trying to go out there and trademark all the SEAL team names, right? Because they wanted to create a toy line to commemorate the teams. And the funny thing was the Department of Defense went and fought Disney and said, no, you cannot trademark these for commerce because they're actively used insignias used on uniforms. So the only thing that the DoD could not actually call their trademark was the frog logo, because it's not an actively used insignia. And so the funny thing is, Jeff and I were aware this was happening. So we said, you know what, we'll just put the frog on our packets and call it frogfuel. So we actually trademarked the frog and frogfuel, and we actually licensed it back to the DoD. So that's the whole reason why pretty funny. I mean, we're not making, like, we don't charge the DoD for it, because it was just for us, it was a way to protect the Frogman. And so
Totally.
there's other Frogman companies who've reached out and said, hey, can I use a logo? And we're like, of course, you're a team guy. But we've also had companies trying to use the logo that are not affiliated with the teams that we've shut down because of it.
Well, that's an awesome way to kick it off too. Just the branding and the messaging and the story behind that. That's cool. So tell us more about the product itself.
Yeah, so it's the frogfuel is the same. It is the same formula we use in our medical brand. The whole reason of us kind of creating 2 separate brands is just because the audience is so different. Typically, Protein Gold is marketed toward an audience has some type of medical indications looking for treatment, or typically somebody 55 plus has joint pain, joint inflammation, or arthritis. And what we found is when we had one brand, it was very difficult to have a website presence where you're marketing to 3 distinctly different audiences. So one's healthcare professionals, 2 is a demographic of individuals looking for some type of treatment, and then elderly, and then now human performance. So we basically created frogfuel using the same formula, just different packaging, same formula that's in Protein Gold. And so it's the same product, but on the frogfuel side, we have 2 products. So one is our protein, the other is our pre-workout endurance fuel, which is protein, carbohydrates, electrolytes, and 2 amino acids designed to increase power output and reduce muscle fatigue. And both products are offered in an energized version.
So I've actually tried both your products. For everybody listening, they actually taste really good. That's not just a pitch, and I'm certainly not a paid for spokesperson by Frogfuel or OP2 Labs or anything. It's really good stuff. It tastes good. So that's the start. When it gets into your mouth, it's really good. Then it goes into your system and actually kicks in and helps you. I mean, you can't lose. I'm all about your product. So where can you get it?
Yeah, so we haven't focused a lot on retail, but we do have retailers that carry it in specifically the Texas area. So Central Market, HEB, Market Street are big retailers here. We used to be in Walmart, but we pulled out of Walmart just because the logistics challenges of dealing with large retailers is very, very tough on a business. So we decided to re-strategize. So those retailers, we do sell to a lot of gyms and fitness centers throughout the United States, and then of course online. So frogfuel.com or amazon.com, both carry our product. Okay.
And we'll put the information for the website up at the end of this video so that everybody can go check it out. If you see the website, you will see the website. Go to it, buy some products, support a fellow Frogman. It's good stuff. Let's touch back on this real quick. What do you see OP2 Labs doing in the future? If you had, an unlimited budget, where do you want to go with it?
Yeah, kind of funny you say that because, we had opportunities early on to raise capital, but we chose to bootstrap it. So literally Jeff Byers and myself each put in $25,000, with $50,000. We started our company and did our first manufacturing run. And I laugh about it because the first year, I mean, just out of transparency, we made $58,000. Second year, 250. And when when you bootstrap, you're cash constrained, it affects your business. But now we've gotten to the point where we're so profitable that we can now invest a lot of money into marketing. So to answer your question, what we're really focused on is growth. And we've started hitting it really hard these past 2 years. So we're looking at growth in our US market. And we're also looking at, because COVID-19 kind of really demonstrated to us that there isn't a lot of resiliency in the US supply chain, too many breaking points. And what happens is that we realized that had we been in a lot of major retailers, that we probably would have gone out of business, because those retailers were also being selective in the types of products they were carrying. And they were just saying, if you're not essential, we're not going to order in. So we decided we didn't want to be dependent on any one economy. And so what we've really started focusing on is diversifying our business, and growing in the international market. So this year, we went from being in one country to now we're in 6 countries. And within 2 years, we're looking at being in 13 countries throughout the world.
That is awesome. Congratulations on that, brother.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah, that is huge.
Good team. It always comes down to the team, man.
No doubt there. Well, you heard it from the man himself. This is OP2 Labs, and you can check it out at op2labs.com. Go check out his products. Go purchase his products. You're supporting a veteran. You're supporting a team guy. It's really good stuff, and it makes you healthy. So it's a win-win all around. And I appreciate you being on the show, brother.